You know, it's pretty interesting, and it comes up often in real estate practice. When somebody owns a home that has solar panels on it and they're getting ready to put it on the market, buyers will look at it sometimes with an air of skepticism, wondering if they really should move forward with it. Why does that happen exactly? In my honest opinion, and based upon observation of helping both families sell homes that have solar panels and families buy homes that have solar panels, it really comes down to communication. It comes down to sharing the benefits of it, how the process works, and making the process easier to understand. Once everybody understands how the solar panels benefit the house and what the process is to transfer it, normally goes along pretty easy. So let's give you some pro tips on how to sell your house with solar panels. My name is Andrew Finney, and my passion is to help you make sense of real estate. If you need help finding a top agent near you, or if you simply want to drop me a line to say hello, my contact info is below. If you're new here, please go ahead and subscribe to this channel now and like this video. Thank you. All right, my friend, let's talk about this because sometimes it really is one of those things whenever I meet with a buying family, they're like, hey, Andrew, you know, everything about this house is right, but it has solar. What's going to happen with the solar if I buy this house? Who's going to maintain it? Who's going to pay for it? What happens here? And it's all really good questions. So one of the best things that we could do is provide the insight as to what this looks like when they get ready to buy a home with solar panels. So there's a few different steps that you want to go ahead and start jotting down some notes and getting prepared to go if you're not yet on the market. And if you are on the market actively selling your home and you haven't done this yet, please go back and get it done. The first thing for all of us as Americans to realize is that more and more homes are going to have solar installed on them. There have been a lot of rebates recently leading into 2020 where we've seen a lot of government incentives being provided. Now, as of 2020, those incentives are going to start diminishing slowly going up to 2030. So what this means to us is there's already a lot of homes with solar panels, whether it's in a hot state or even in some of the cooler states. The sun is ever present. So we're going to see more and more of this going into the future, especially as we see electric rates get higher. So even though right now we're just beginning this conversation, and I'm glad that we're doing it, frankly, because people that are out buying a home are going to start seeing more of this. And you as a seller, if you were the one that installed that solar, need to be prepared for the realities of what it is to sell a home with a solar panel. The second thing to realize is just because you have solar panels on your house does not necessarily mean that you're automatically going to get a boost to your property value. It really depends whether those panels are leased, if they're financed, or if they're owned outright. An owned solar panel, in other words, if you paid it all off in cash and you no longer have a balance due on them, then you should have a service contract in place that needs to be transferred to the prospective home buyer. All the same, as it relates to your home's value itself, only an owned panel would give you the opportunity to increase the value of your home because it's affixed to the property and it's considered an asset of the property. Unfortunately, you're not able to benefit from a boost in property value if those panels are leased or financed. Something to be very clear on up front as you move forward through the selling process. Now, one of the best ways to know more about this and how it's going to impact your property value is to talk to your trusted real estate advisor, and if necessary, go ahead and hire an independent appraiser to come out and assess your home's value, especially if those panels are owned. Going into the future, my thought is that real estate appraisers are going to get with it with all of the homes that have owned solar panels, and they're going to have an actual calculation that they're going to do and perform to assign the value based upon the output of those solar panels and how it's going to translate into your bottom line with your home value at large. Now, of course, at the end of the day, the beauty is in the eye of the beholder, which means that a buyer is ultimately going to say, hey, those panels are ultimately worth some money to me, and I can appreciate the fact that I have reduced electric bills, or hey, you know what, I don't really care about that, I just want the house. In either case, we got to be realistic to the market and what the market is saying about it. And when I work with buyers and real estate practice, it's a situation where there's a lot of buyers that initially were really skeptical of the solar panels until you could show them the benefits of having the solar system itself. It is ultimately good for the environment. It is ultimately good for your bottom line, as you already know. So how does this exactly relate into selling a house with solar panels? Well, we want to put it out there openly and honestly up front, the pros and the cons. There are three things that we really want to dive deep on and highlight when we get ready to go on the market and we have a house that has the solar panels. The first highlight that we want to make is it's an environmentally friendly decision. As our world keeps getting more more and more populous and as there's more and more strain on Mother Nature, we need to take care of Mother Nature so she can take care of us, right? I mean, that's kind of common sense. At the same time, there's a lot of people out there, you know, we consume a lot of electricity. So we need to help lighten that load, and perhaps one of the best ways that we can do that is simply being more energy conscious in what we use. So by virtue of having the solar panels, then we are already doing a good thing to lower the overall consumption, even though we're still consuming the electric. We're just now getting the power from the sun. Highlight the fact that it's good for the environment, and I think you're going to make a friend with a prospective buyer. The second thing is the very real fact it's going to lower your electric bills. Now, you've already been noticing this. Depending on how long you've had those solar panels, even if they're leased, the longer you have those panels, the more rate hikes that the electric company increases in your area, the more that you start noticing in conversations with your neighbors or your family members around that have similar homes, your bill is so much lower than theirs, right? And they're like, oh my God, you're saving so much money. That's awesome. Well, what can we do as a seller to help a buyer know more about that? It's simple. All we need to do is go back in time, go into your account before the time that you installed solar, annotate what those rate hikes were in the years preceding up to the time that you're going on the market, and then give them 12 months of your utility bills from before and after you install the solar so they can compare and contrast it. The savings are right there, whether it's leased, owned, or financed. They're going to see the real benefit to them by virtue of having that. In fact, as you know, the longer you have that system on your house, the more money you're ultimately going to save as the rates keep going up, and you just have that simple cap in there through the service provider that you chose to install your solar. The third thing to highlight is it can actually be a bigger boon to them in the form of net metering. They can actually make money depending on the rules and regulations where you own your house that has solar. You might be able to say, hey, I don't use all the electric on my house, so we have net metering set up, which means that the energy company is actually paying us to produce energy by virtue of our solar panels on our roof. Now, isn't that a good idea? And isn't that kind of sweet where not only are you getting a reduced energy bill, but now you're able to charge the energy company. So that old saying when they're like, hey, you know, turn off all the lights, we don't own the energy company. Well, in the case of solar panels, you kind of own a small one right on top of your house. Let's go ahead and highlight this, because at the end of the day, what all of this really comes down to is education. It is our opportunity as a home seller and trusted real estate advisor to educate people about solar and how it can benefit them to better sell your home. As a best practice here, we want to highlight and promote who installed the solar. There are 5 main players across the United States that are installing solar companies. The reason this becomes important is for the simple fact that with that service contract that you have out and those warranties that you have on your panels, buyers would like to know that those companies will still be here tomorrow to honor those agreements should they arise and should they be needed. The 5 main players that are installing solar across the United States right now are number 1, Sunrun, number 2, Vivint Solar, number 3, Sonova, 4, SunPower, and the 5th is Solar City, also known as like Tesla Energy, if you will. So we need to highlight this information and we need to make it available. One of the best things that you can do as an owner of a house that has solar before you go on the market is to contact your solar company. Ask them for all the documentation that's going to be needed to transfer the solar to a new buyer, whether it's owned, leased, or financed. We want to be able to provide that information up front in the utmost of transparency. Doing so takes out any nervous jitters, any butterflies in the tummy that we have, so that a buyer can say, hey, you know what, I can make sense of this. This is actually easier than what I thought it was. And this is a really cool deal. The sellers even showed us the utility bills, and yeah, I'm saving like hundreds or thousands of dollars a year by virtue of just simply having solar. By highlighting that, by educating, by getting the conversation started, we can help you better sell your home. But be prepared to provide all those transfer documents and be sure to contact the person who installed your solar and learn about the transfer process ahead of time. And one of the best practices that you can do here is simply to gather all your warranty information, all the documents that you have pertaining to your solar system so that you can have everything ready to go, all your ducks ready to go and in a row before you go on the market. Go ahead and get that warranty information ready. Go ahead and put together that package with your trusted real estate advisor and make it available from day one when you go on the market. One of the best things that your trusted real estate advisor could do is to get a copy of all that, scan it into a digitized format, and upload it to the multiple listing service as additional documents available for your listing from day one. Doing so, as soon as they start getting calls from buyer agents that want to show your property, they can say, hey, I just want you to to know this does have solar. Oh, and by the way, I have the transfer documents, I have the warranty documents, I have the system information already uploaded in the multiple listing service. Please review that with your buyer, and if you have any questions, please let us know. By the way, the seller has already got together all their utility bills from the before and after in the last 12 months of their utility bills, showing what the averages are so that your buyer can make a well-informed decision that's right for them when they decide to buy this house. Now, there's a flip side of this that is a whole different thought from a point of view of a buyer and some other people that are learning more about selling a home or buying a home with solar. And one of our YouTube subscribers, Carol Cole Lewis, actually commented on the video how to buy or sell a house with solar panels. And she said, well, Andrew, why wouldn't the seller just buy out a lease or the finance using their net proceeds coming to them from the equity as opposed to just trying to transfer it? And I said, you know, that's actually a really good point, and it is a prevailing thought in conversation with a lot of people, and I've seen it more than once other than just Carol. So Carol, you know, if you're watching this one too, thank you for that comment. Very, very much appreciated. I always take a lot of interest in the comments that come in from you, our subscribers on the channel, and I'd love to be able to use it in the video. That's a whole side part right there. All the same, let's get back to what Carol was saying, because it presents a couple of different interesting realities. On one side, what would happen if you, the seller, did pay off those panels? Now, you may remember back earlier in our first part of our conversation, if you have owned solar panels, it does what to your home's value? It'll increase the property value. So the trade-off for a prospective buyer, if it was negotiated that you as a seller were to pay off any remaining lease or financing that you took out for that solar, would also need to be prepared to pony up for the higher price of the home, which may go above and beyond their pre-approval limit or outside of their financial comfort zone. So Carol, that would be one example of the trade-off of that. While it would look sexy and appealing on one side, on the other side, you have this reality that the home value will also more than likely escalate along with paying it off, because the own panel can and will add value to a home. Now, the flip side of that is, okay, you as a seller, well, what happens if you don't have the ability to pay it off? Or what happens if you just want to transfer the lease, if you have it leased or financed and you want to transfer everything to a prospective buyer? That's absolutely okay. It's a transfer form and it's done through the solar company. Again, going back to the wisdom of having all your ducks in a row and ready to go by having that information done before day one of going on the market. It's not really hard to transfer these things. It's very simple. In fact, I've helped several families here in Las Vegas, Nevada sell homes that have solar, that be it owned, leased, or financed, and help people buy homes that have solar, be it owned, leased, or financed. It's not a difficult process. It's really about just getting the conversation going, being transparent with how it works, and being the educator throughout the process so that the buyer agent or the listing agent knows what's going on with that transfer process. So does the seller, so does the buyer. So everybody has all the information at their fingertips to ask questions. The hope of this video is to help get the conversation moving forward so that more of us are talking about it and knowing what kind of questions to ask and what to look for as we see more and more solar on our homes' roofs. So going back to that transfer process, I do want to share this up front because this can also happen, and I have seen this happen before too. When you have a lease or you have a financed solar system, what happens is the buyer must also qualify for that additional amount of the monthly minimum charge from that solar company or the financing company for those solar panels. What that means is if their debt to income ratio was already like here, like really tight, and it was really tiny little margin of error, it could kill the deal by virtue of them having to qualify for that additional amount. The reason that this happens is because a mortgage loan officer has to count it as a recurring debt, much like a credit card, against their debt to income ratios. So that's where we got to gain some insight and some clarity to Carol's point, and that may have been something she heard about and one of the reasons why she made the comment, unless it was just otherwise an awesome question. So when we're talking about that, we have the option to either buy it out outright as the seller, pay it off in other words, or to transfer the lease. Well, there's pros and cons to both sides. If you pay it off, it could potentially boost your property value, and now the buyer needs to qualify for more, or the buyer needs to be willing to pay more for your house. Or at the same time, if you transfer it, what could happen is it could throw off the debt to income ratios for that prospective buyer. As a best practice, we would like to see you working with a trusted real estate advisor that is familiar with how to sell homes with solar panels. So no matter whether you own those panels, you lease those panels or you finance those panels, they know what documentation you need to get ready to go and can help guide you from day one of how to get that done, so you don't get into the closing process and then you're thinking, oh my God, my deal just blew up and I so didn't see it coming. Because if your agent is already familiar, they're already going to know. Rule number one as a good listing agent anyways is to call the mortgage loan officer, verify everything is on the up and up with the buyer's financial pre-approval. Number two, verify that the buyer can actually in fact afford that amount of money that's going out for the solar panels if it is the lease or if it is financed, so it doesn't come back to blow up at the end of the day. Knowing to ask these questions up front can be massively beneficial to you and powerful to you through the closing process. So please make sure that you're hiring an experienced agent that knows how to help people buy and sell homes with solar panels so that you're ready to go. As a final thought here, there are 5 things that I'd like you to go ahead and prepare if you haven't already done so before you go on the market. Make sure that your trusted real estate advisor is addressing the fact that you have a solar system in the multiple listing remarks. Number 2 is to make sure all the proper disclosures about your lease, if you have one, are being made available, kind of what we were talking about earlier with attaching those documents in the multiple listing service. Number 3 is to ensure that you're released of any liability from the panels after you close and they've been successfully transferred, whether they're owned, leased, or financed. The 4th thing is to have your before and after utility bills ready to go. Number 5 is to get your transfer documents and process ready, including your warranty service, your specifications of the system, the rating breakdown of how it works with any rates that are going to be increasing and at what percentage moving forward into the future. At the end of the day, I'm just hoping we can get this conversation going and help people better understand what it is to buy or sell a home with solar. And in your case, since you're watching this video and you made it this far, thank you. Now you'll be better prepared on how to sell your house with solar. So now let's take a deeper look at buying and selling a house with solar panels. And if you're wondering if it's worth it to install solar panels, let's take a look at that too. Looking forward to our next conversation. We'll see you in a few.